Hello, everyone. This is The Business Buzz, a collaboration between 9 News and the Denver Business Journal to bring you news, perspective, and insights on what's happening in business, the economy, and the policies that can affect us all. I'm Ryan Frazier, 9 News business expert and CEO of Frazier Global, here with Ed Sealover, senior reporter with the Denver Business Journal. We're going to bring you a few topics each show that matter to the business world and matter to you. Today we have 3 topics. Ed, let's get going.
Absolutely.
Topic 1, Colorado ranked number 4 in the country among CNBC's top states for business. Colorado, led by the Denver metro area, is competing on a national scale with a highly educated workforce and great quality of life driving its rankings. Ed, give us your thoughts on this.
Well, it's very interesting. This was a big topic a couple weeks ago at the Metro Denver EDC Site Selectors Conference, where they bring in people from across the country who help firms decide where they want to expand or relocate to. The CNBC ranking showed a couple of things here. 1, Colorado is number 1 in the country for workforce. That means we have the second most educated workforce in terms of bachelor's degrees in the country, but we also are pumping more money into training people to move on to other jobs or to move up in their own jobs, and also putting more money into our higher education system. That is jumping out at a time when people need more and more out of the workforce. Colorado ranks also very high in life, health, and inclusion. That involves our outdoor area, but it also involves access to health care, and the topic that some might surprise some we rank high in, access to child care, despite our backlogs there, compared to the rest of the country doing well. And Colorado ranks high in business friendliness. This means that there isn't an overly burdensome tax or regulatory structure, though it certainly could be improved. And it also means that Colorado is very welcoming to new businesses, such as cryptocurrency, I should say, such as marijuana regulation. This shows that Colorado is willing to move and shake and allow more businesses in. Now, there are 2 areas, and I don't think this is going to surprise anyone, where we rank down. Cost. 32nd in the country in terms of cost of living. It is getting more expensive to live here. You should see that. You know that by the cost of housing, and it's going up. And that affects companies when they're saying, where can I put my workers and how close can I get them to my office if I want to locate an office in central Denver? That's getting harder. 36th in the cost of doing business. This again reflects the cost of business real estate. It reflects the cost of bringing people in. It does reflect some regulatory increases as well. But overall, this is about how expensive Colorado is getting. And while we've been able to attract a lot of firms, especially from the coast where life has been a lot more expensive for us, this means that if we don't bring down this or slow the rise in the cost of living and doing business here, it could be a lot harder to bring in those San Francisco or New York companies.
You know, not a lot of surprises in the rankings and the data. I mean, we have a great workforce. I mean, one of the most highly educated in the country, which, again, not a surprise. Is a reason that I think a lot of companies want to be in Colorado. The quality of life, we all know the Colorado quality of life is what is the reason that many of us call Colorado home today. So those, I think, make a lot of sense. The child care one, though, is a bit surprising because I hear that issue a lot from folks I talk to in the business community and people, employees, workers of different organizations that, you know, child care is a big issue. It's a big cost burden. So I'm a little surprised that that actually stood out.
Well, this is one of those things where it may be our perspective, and it is a burden. Don't get me wrong. Colorado's legislature worked on a number of bills over the last 2 years to try to pump more money into child care. Not just formal child care, but even getting more people to be a friends and family child care, basically watching 4 kids or less that you just know personally. However, when you're comparing us to the West Coast, when you're comparing us to the East Coast, this is one of those areas where it is easier to find child care here in Colorado, they said. So,
yeah, well, I mean, that's very telling. I certainly hope we continue to get better because I know it's a big issue for a lot of families. And no surprise, cost of living, inflation, everything, cost is going up across the board, cost of doing business. But I want to touch on just real quickly business friendliness because it's not a surprise, but I have to ask the question, you know, is the state business friendly enough to really bring more businesses to Colorado?
Well, let's put it this way. We're ranked 16th overall in business friendliness. So we're closer to the middle than we are to the top, but we're still in the top half. You've heard a lot about regulations, and there was an acknowledgement in CNBC. Look, we're seeing more regulations, but again, it's a matter of comparison. There's a reason that people are fleeing California. California is piling regulations on business like it's a sport, whereas Colorado is adding regulations that many businesses do not like, and I think you're going to see a lot lot of moaning, particularly about having to pay for paid family medical leave here starting in 2023. But again, compared to some of the other states, we are still more welcoming, and we are more welcoming of new industries. That's one thing that stood out to them. They said the way that the state is taking crypto payments right now, the state has put out a framework for illegal marijuana operations. It shows that the state wants to be forward thinking. And so if you particularly have a business that's going to kind of bust down the traditional structure, Colorado is a state where you may be interested in coming.
Absolutely, and I would just suggest, that looking at states like Texas and Florida, who are also doing well in attracting businesses, and coupling that with our quality of life and the fact that we have just a great workforce, could be a way to make Colorado even more competitive in the months and years ahead. Ed, real quickly, you sat in on the Metro Denver's Site Selectors Conference. What do you expect from state and economic leaders going forward?
Well, it was interesting. One of the messages that came out of the site selectors was Colorado's got a lot going for it. You need to trumpet it more. They said, we're not doing a good enough job saying, here's why Denver should be competing with some of the major cities, whether that be Dallas or Austin. Some of the cities we compete very well with. So I expect more promotion in some ways, and I expect probably more talk about the workforce specifically. The Metro Denver EDC has put out a new concept called the elevation effect that tries to explain why our workers are different than the rest of the country. I think you're going to see them double down on that as people consider workforce more important.
As they should. Promote more Colorado as a place people want to be. Okay, topic 2. CU released its latest Leads Business Confidence Index. The Colorado business leaders expressed pessimism ahead of these last 3 months of 2022, recording the 5th lowest index in the 20-year history of the Leads Business Confidence Index. Inflation, rising interest rates, the supply chain issues, workforce shortages, worries of a recession, all fueling the latest sentiment. What have you been hearing from business leaders, Ed?
What I've been hearing from business leaders is that if they don't believe the recession is here, and some believe it already is here, they believe it's coming in 2023. And that's why they are pessimistic now. They are worried about putting money into capital expansions when they don't know that there's going to be consumer sentiment to buy this. Which is an interesting thing to note because they're not worried enough to stop hiring people. And I think this is a little bit of a hangover from the last downturn, which lasted very shortly at the beginning of the pandemic. But they want to hang on to employees because they don't want to have to cut their staff and then go back and out and rehire again. But at this point, they're not putting money into the other areas. They're not expecting growth in sales, and that makes them worried. And frankly, that's the kind of thinking that can bring about a recession in some ways.
So I'm often asked, but why does this matter? This index, right? And I like to tell folks, being in business myself and working with so many other business leaders, that sentiment matters because it influences things like decisions around investment in capital, allocations, hiring, long-term, and that can affect all of us in terms of the vibrancy of our economy. It can sometimes be a domino effect, good or bad. And so when you see sentiment like this, in this case, business leaders saying, hey, we're a little pessimistic, maybe not as pessimistic as we were a few months ago, but still pessimistic. It could have implications 3, 6 months, even a year from now. And as you said, Ed, this very real concern that we are either in a recession or will be, will affect decisions. And those decisions will ultimately affect employment in our state, which affects a variety of supporting businesses that support these different industries. Now, moving on in the conversation, I want to ask you, Colorado business leaders continue to have this favorable view, albeit slightly, or it's pessimistic, but it's more favorable, rather, for the state's economy over the national economy. Why do you think that is?
Well, Colorado's always been a bit ahead of the rest of the nation in terms of the economy, and they are optimistic, at least, that if we're going to see these great swoons in employment elsewhere, it's not going to happen as much here. You've seen a lot of companies coming in, investing in this state, and that is giving them the optimism that those workers who they've brought in are going to stay on the payroll. Now, small business leaders are more pessimistic than big business leaders. They feel like we don't have the reserves to really make up for any new costs that we're going to have to meet or any drop-off in the employees that we're going to be able to hire. And hiring is still a problem. Even as we are worried about a recession, people are saying, I can't find the employees I want. But I think that's why they're a little bit more optimistic about the state right now. Colorado has always usually been a step ahead of the rest of the nation, and they're confident it still will be. But how far? I don't know.
Well, maybe there's maybe there's something between topic 1 and topic 2 here. Keep promoting Colorado. Let's get that optimism up amongst our business leaders, because we want them to have confidence in our economy. We know a recession ultimately will come at some point, but if we stay the course, hopefully we can see our way through it and keep the damage to a minimum. I think it's a good point right here to keep moving forward to topic 3, the intersection of business and politics. 3 ballot issues that are bringing Colorado's liquor wars to voters in November. This November, Colorado voters will weigh in on the state's beer, wine, and liquor regulations. There are 3 initiatives appearing on the ballots in November. The propositions are 124, 125, and 126. Ed, give us the rundown.
Okay, we've got 2 that are basically running together. Proposition 125 would allow convenience and grocery stores to sell wine. Right now, you can only do that if you have bought out another 2 licenses of liquor stores around you. There's a limited number of grocery stores, you may notice, that have full liquor stores. This would say, okay, we put beer in there in 2019. We're going to add wine to what you can sell anywhere you want, grocery or convenience, come 2023. Meanwhile, Proposition 126 says third-party delivery companies, whether this be DoorDash, whether this be Instacart, can deliver alcohol, which they cannot now in the state. The only people who can deliver alcohol now in the state are liquor stores and restaurants who are delivering it with their own employees in their own vehicle. This is going to open it up a lot, and this will also allow restaurants, which are supposed to have a cutoff date in 2025 when they stop delivering booze with their orders, to do it permanently. Back to 124. This is a whole different animal here. This is one that says liquor stores can open basically as many places as they want, at least by 2037. Under a 2016 law, liquor stores could only go up to as many as 4 locations through 2037, and they have certain periods when they can add and add and add. This would remove that, would say they can open as many full locations as grocery stores can, and this is a ballot initiative that is basically being run by one company, that is Total Wine and More, which now has 2 stores in the Denver area, but has very deep pockets out of the Maryland area and wants to expand greatly in the state.
All right, now, so these liquor wars are coming to Colorado. Voters are going to make a decision this November. Look, when I talk to business leaders and folks in the community, there's a question that I constantly get, and that is these measures, is it really the big guys looking to put the squeeze on the little guys and push them out, or is this about really truly giving consumers choice when it comes to their spirits, liquor, and wine?
Well, if you listen to the arguments, it's really about both. I mean, yes, these are measures that are being run by the big guys. They are deeply funded. I mentioned Total Wine and More for Proposition 124. 125 and 126 are being bankrolled by big grocery chains and big tech companies like Instacart. The fact is, they believe, though, it is about convenience. They say that especially since the pandemic came around, this is how people want to be served. They don't want to be trotting around to multiple stores where they have to get different products, and they want to be served at home. Now, for the little guys, in terms of the liquor stores, they are very worried about this. In 2019, after grocery stores and convenience stores were allowed to sell beer, there was a lot of liquor stores that reported 25 to 30% drop-offs in their beer sales. Now, pandemic brought them back. That was the place everybody went to buy their booze in 2020 and 2021. And a lot of liquor stores say that saved us. But they say, if we do this again, if you now take away more of our second product, along with beer, they're going to start losing some of their wine sales. Then you're going to start seeing stores teetering on the edge of closing. We're going to have to see how that turns out if this passes. But that's the argument, that they're saying, us little guys are about to lose share to the big guys, and you're going to have less selection if that's the case.
Yeah, and I have to say, at the end of the day, it should always be about the consumer, right? Or it should be the people out there in the communities. And so I understand the concerns with the small business owners saying, hey, this is one of the few advantages that we have. And if voters pass this is going to take this advantage away from us in large part. That said, at the end of the day, it is about the consumer and giving the consumer greater choice, greater latitude in their own decisions of what they want or don't want. So this one's tough for me because, and I'm not opining. We've seen no polling. Maybe this passes in November. Maybe it doesn't. But if it does, what should we expect?
Well, I think we're going to watch that. One of the things that the proponents of this measure, at least of 125, 126, point out is that liquor stores said they were going to close in big numbers after beer went into grocery stores. There are actually more liquor stores operating today than there were when beer went into grocery stores at the beginning of 2019. However, again, is this going to be a toppling effect? You took one of our products and you took another one. We're going to watch how many are closing. We're going to watch how many are selling at this point. Liquor store sales are still up from this point in 2019. So there are buyers who believe this is not going to affect them as much. But we're also seeing, this was an interesting thing I found out from a real estate expert, we're also seeing a lot more sales of liquor stores where they own the property. Basically, people coming and buying, saying, I want to buy their liquor store, but in case this liquor store thing doesn't work out, I can convert it to something else. So I think that's what we're going to watch in the coming years if this passes.
As we wrap up, lightning round real quickly, Ed, there are several other business issues on the ballot, so to speak, this November. Give us a quick snapshot of those and perhaps implications, if you can, in the next 30 seconds or so.
Let me actually turn to the races and say that what you're going to be hearing a lot of is, do you like the regulations in Colorado right now? Republicans are running on we want to roll back regulations, and maybe we want to pump more money into unemployment insurance trust fund. Democrats are saying we want to protect the environment. Those are the business issues. The future of regulation and futures of things like the oil and gas industry and what it'll be allowed to do are at debate when you're talking about the state house and state senate races in particular.
Yeah. Well, for folks out there, you got some big decisions to make this November, whether it comes to the liquor wars or to a variety of other issues around regulations, to those that you seek to represent and help lead our state and our country. Ed, that's all for now. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on the Business Buzz. For 9 News, I'm Ryan Frazier, and for Ed Sealover with the Denver Business Journal. Till next time.